Hello, it's Garland Nixon. Time to chat again. We're going to talk about the Vladimir Putin and Joe Biden summit. I think I have an interesting take on it, and I look forward to getting some feedback from you. Let's talk. Hello. Garland Nixon here, and we're going to chat about oh man, the StreamYard thing. Maybe I'll move a little bit. There you go. I got a duck hanging on my head here. We can't have that, can we? So we're going to talk about the oh, I see people. We're going to talk about the Putin Biden summit, and I'm going to take a little different perspective on it. As you know, I see things a bit differently than the mainstream media and what you normally hear. So I'm going to push back a bit on the mainstream media's way of looking at it. Let's start by doing this, maybe. How about I go to CNN, CNN.com. Isn't it fun? We get to surf the net together. And I look, and here's what I see. Putin praises Biden, calling him a professional following the Geneva summit, and McCarthy rips Biden for giving Putin a pass. So what do we have in America? We've got it's about things that are non-substantive. What the hell kind of discussion is that? These are two nuclear powers between the United States and Russia. These two countries possess 95% of all nuclear weapons on Earth. And the best CNN can do is Putin praises Biden, calling him a professional following the Geneva summit. Well, that's fine, but that's non-substantive. So what? You know what? You could say, hey, this Garland's next door neighbor praised him. Yeah, really? And what happened then? Then he shot him in the head. It doesn't matter that he praised him. And the next, McCarthy rips Biden for giving Putin a pass. Again, to me, a summit like this traditionally over the course of the years, throughout the Cold War, when the president of the United States and the president of the Soviet Union met, it was to mellow things out a bit to make sure that there was no nuclear war and that humankind didn't get wiped out. That's reasonable. You don't have to love each other. This is not about Putin or Biden. You know who it's about? It's about us. It's about ensuring that our families, that our friends, that we don't get wiped out. That's what it's about to me. So when I turn this crap on, and let me go to another one. Oh, that's right. I should be sharing it on the screen. Oops. But we'll do that. We'll go to the WashingtonPost.com and let's see what we can have. I'll guarantee there's something on here. Oh, I guess it doesn't happen. I guess there's nothing. I guess it's not even there. Record setting, nothing. I see nothing on the main page. I was a Republican should give me the FBI. The decay of American democracy is real for reasons of carryable. That's true. So at any rate, let's talk about it a little bit. Let me give you my perspective, what I think of it, what I saw. One of the most telling statements during this whole event was this. Joe Biden, he was speaking at a press conference and he said this. Let's get this straight. How would it be if the United States were viewed by the rest of the world as interfering with the elections directly of other countries and everybody knew it? What would it be like if we engaged in activities that he engaged in? It diminishes the standing of a country that is desperately trying to make sure it maintains its standing as a world major power. Okay. I look at that and you say to yourself, I'll put it like this. Here's what it would be like. I'm standing there with a bottle of whiskey in my hand, just slugging it, a quart, just slugging it. And someone says, what do you think about your next door neighbor being an alcoholic? And I say, what would it be like if I drank all the time? What would it be like if I was an alcoholic? Look. People would think I was crazy. It would diminish me as a human. Look. That I sat there with a big giant bottle of liquor in my hand, drinking it down, criticizing my neighbor as he cuts his grass. That's what he did. Okay, right now, the US has a list a mile long of countries that it is literally trying to overthrow the government. Right now, United States is trying to overthrow the government of Syria, trying to overthrow the government of Iran. If you truth be told, trying to overthrow the governments of Russia and China, trying to overthrow the government of Nicaragua, trying to overthrow the government of Cuba, trying to overthrow the government of Venezuela. Right or wrong? Help me out, somebody. Is damn near admittedly trying to overthrow the government of scores of countries around the world, all throughout. Ask the people of the global south of South America, of Guatemala, El Salvador, Brazil, every one of those countries. We have overthrown the government repeatedly. And Joe Biden says, how would it be if the United States were viewed by the rest of the world as interfering with the elections of other countries? We overthrow their governments. So that is insane. But it's something different than insane, okay? And here's what it is. It represents a country that, I'll just put it this way, that has gone mad, that is living in a false reality, right? For Joe Biden, who the hell was Joe Biden talking to say that? He obviously wasn't talking to anyone who knows anything. Right now, you think Joe Biden doesn't know that he's not in charge? In charge may be the wrong word. That he is not presiding. He's a president. He's at minimum presiding over a government that's attempting to overthrow governments of multiple countries. So he knows this. What Joe Biden is saying is a lie coming out of his mouth, and he knows it's a lie. It is a false reality. It would be one thing if Joe sat in the bedroom with his wife at night and said this, because she'd just look at him and say, yeah, sure, Joe. But he's standing in front of the world, putting forth an absurd reality. An absurd reality. They went there. Then the accusations. Joe Biden, one of the things he said was, yes, on January 6th at his press conference, there was a Capitol police officer that was murdered, that they broke in and they murdered a Capitol police officer. Look, I'm not taking any positions on January 6th. That's a whole nother discussion. There's lots of things you could say about that. But what you can't say is that a capital city, a Capitol officer was murdered. There was a guy who had a stroke apparently and died. In hindsight and looking back, no. Look, all I'm talking about is the facts, right? The facts are, no, there was not a Capitol police officer that was murdered. Joe said there was. He made statements that are easily debunked, easily proven to be false, right? But here's the problem. And this is what it shows. We have a government that's really in crisis. Look at our foreign policy. Look at what happened. Joe Biden went and met with Vladimir Putin. Nothing really came of it. And he came outside and started spitting out absurdities in his press conference. Absurdities. Might I add, let me say this. Joe Biden comes out to start his press conference, and he started by admitting that he had a list of the people that he was supposed to call on. Now, Putin did a press conference. He let everybody in, and he answered questions, and he took all comers, and he was attacked by some American. But look, he's a president. He took on all comers, right? On the other hand, there's Biden, and he admits, I got a list of the people I'm supposed to call on. He already knew who to call on. It was set up with friendly softball questions. What the hell is that? So we got two leaders. One of them says, okay, I'll take all comers. The other says, I already got a list. And he wouldn't allow the Russian media in there. The Russians allowed the U.S. media in there. The U.S. wouldn't allow the Russian media in there. And you look at it afterwards, and you're saying, this thing doesn't look like it makes much sense to me. And then Biden spits out things that are patently absurd. Now, here's why that makes sense. Let's look at the U.S. foreign policy for just a second. Right now, the U.S. relations between the relations between the United States and China are in complete crisis. Right? The U.S. they got bases around China. We're sending ships around China. We're hearing all this terrible rhetoric towards China. We've got Asian people getting beaten up. The foreign relationship between the U.S. and China is in total crisis, complete crisis. You know, there's going to be war, whatever. Okay. Meanwhile, let's look at the United States relationship with Russia in absolute crisis. absolute and total crisis. The U.S. overthrew the government of Ukraine on Russia's border, and that's been nothing but disastrous for our foreign policy. The United States, every other week, there's another article. Yes, Russia stole my homework. Russia hacked my iPhone. Russia, Russia, Russia. Every other week, there's another article with accusations about Russia. So, the two most powerful countries in the world start here. China, the United States foreign policy, the United States relationship is in total crisis with China. Let's go to Russia. The United States relationship is in total crisis with Russia. Let's go to Iran. That's a regional power in the Middle East. The United States is threatening Iran. The United States is having difficulty getting back into the Iran agreement. We dropped out, and again, we're saying absurd things. We drop out of the Iran agreement, and we say Iran has to get back in the agreement. We dropped out. So the U.S. relationship with Iran is in crisis. So you're starting to see a pattern here. The U.S. relationship with China in crisis. The U.S. relationship with Russia in crisis. U.S. relationship with Iran in crisis. Go to Europe, our so-called allies. The U.S.'s relationship with Germany is kind of in crisis because Germany, a sovereign nation that is supposed to be an ally of the United States, the United States has been hassling Germany, has been threatening Germany, has been threatening to sanction Germany because Germany wants to buy inexpensive. They've got an arrangement with Russia to get inexpensive, reliable source of fuel, of energy through a pipeline. And the United States has been threatening sanctions on an ally. We've been in a big battle with Germany, in crisis with Germany, in crisis with Russia, in crisis with China, in crisis with Iran. Name a country that we're not in crisis with. We go to the G7 last week and we're yelling, everybody, we got to go up against, we've got to band together to go against China. And Germany's like, time out there, cuz. Time out. We're selling a whole lot of Beamers and Mercedes and all the stuff that we sell. We're a big industrial nation, and we're selling and buying and selling a lot of stuff in China. We ain't down with that. Macron then says, oh, we're doing the same. And look, last time I checked, this is NATO. China is not in the North Atlantic. I'm sorry. So the U.S. goes to the G7 and says, hey, everybody, we've got to join together to go against China. And they're like, dude, we're just trying to eat, man. We got to eat. And we're eating off China because we're selling them stuff and we're buying stuff from them. And you're trying to screw that up. We ain't down with it. I know that the Chinese Communist Party and all that crazy crap. Your ideology says they can't be the good guys. They got to be the bad guys. But here in the EU, we got to eat, man. And right now, the economy ain't so good. Coronavirus shutdowns. We're trying to get back on our feet. We got to eat. We ain't down. So the G7 was like, we ain't down with that crap, man. We don't want to be in crisis with China. We got to eat. So someone says Germany's a terrible example. And I'm not talking about what Germany's doing with their people internally. I'm talking about our relationship with country after country is in crisis, including Germany, including France. Then Biden goes over there. He's going to boss England around regarding the Northern Ireland protocols. Well, you've got to do this with Northern Ireland. Who the hell are we to tell England? Let them work out what they're doing with Northern Ireland. But Biden's going to go over there and tell them what to do. Our relationship with England, problems. The United States foreign policy is in crisis all over the world. And I think I would argue that it is the reason we're in crisis is because our nation from the top down is living in an absurd, farcical reality. Look, you know, they always talk about this business about conspiracy theory, blah, 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 right? Our leaders are living in a crazy conspiracy theory world. When Joe Biden says, how would it be if the United States were viewed by the rest of the world as interfering with the elections? Well, we are. We've overthrown country. What about Greece, Italy, on and on and on. So we're going around the world trying to tell people what to do. We're going around the world, overthrowing country after country, threatening our allies, threatening our adversaries, a relationship in crisis with everyone else. And Joe Biden's running around saying we're building back better in the world, America's back. All of this hollow, abstract, meaningless rhetoric that's absurd. Meanwhile, in the real world, where foreign policies, where diplomats from countries that don't get along sit down and iron out their differences, we aren't able to do it. Why? Because our leaders live in an absurd reality. So, okay, here's an example. What the U.S. needed to do was go to that meeting, sit down, and say, all right, Vladimir Putin, here's our issues. Let me hear your issues. As diplomats, work out, address the issues. It's got to be a mutual thing. We got to give a little bit. We got to take a little bit. That's fine. That's diplomacy. That's not what we did. But all the setup to it was this. Biden's got to go there and confront Putin. He's got to tell Putin about this. He's got to tell Putin about this. That's not international diplomacy, but that has become the United States, because the United States foreign policy is absurd. I will guarantee you that most Americans not only don't know anything about Russia, what little, or Vladimir Putin, the things that they think they know are 99.9% incorrect. And our leadership plays off of that, which when you're dealing with domestic policy and you're trying to bamboozle and lie to your people, which is what our government's doing, bamboozling and lying to the dupes. Okay, that's all good and fine. You can get away with false realities. Americans will believe all kinds of crazy shit. But when it comes to dealing with other countries, those false realities, they get you nowhere. And you end up in crisis with China, in crisis with Russia, in crisis with Iran, in crisis with Venezuela, in crisis with Cuba. And this is what the U.S. does. This is sadly at the foundation of U.S. foreign policy, and why the Americans, the people, are so ignorant of foreign policy and so lost and so confused. This is Americans' foreign policy. There's country X and America doesn't like country X. So what does America say? Their leader is a dictator. Their leader is evil. We don't even get into the country. We don't get it because that's simple. That is heroes and villains, heroes and villains, heroes and villains, right? That is, well, we create this Marvel comic absurdity reality where we want to overthrow a country, so their leader is a villain. He's evil. And if he's a villain, well, that makes us, if he's evil, doesn't that make us the good guys? Right? If their leader is evil, so we give our people a bunch of crazy propaganda and we say fill in the blank. Look, do you think it's a coincidence that the U.S. wants to overthrow the government of Venezuela and Maduro, their leader, is an evil dictator and a villain? That's one. The U.S. wants to overthrow Syria. And what do you know? The leader of Syria is a villain, evil dictator. Need we go on? The U.S. wants to overthrow Iran. Well, what do you know? Iran's run by the crazy mullahs who are evil dictators. The U.S. wants to overthrow Russia. Oh, well, a coincidence. You're not going to believe this. Putin's an evil dictator. How about China? Xi. Oh, yeah, that's right. Evil dictator. How many times do you have to hear that before you realize what's going on here? This is a pattern. And they don't do that for the rest of the world. They do that for you. They do that so you'll be the dupe. For 4 years, the blue anon dupes heard every day, Russia's evil, Russia's evil, Russia's Trump, Russia Trump, Putin, Putin, Putin. And they believed, the poor bastards believed it. Now, the poor Republican dupes hear from their people, the Chinese Communist Party is evil. The China's out to get you. Xi's out to get you. And they're just as dupes. That's why I'm an independent. We got two parties full of brainwashed cult members. And they're the same people. Oh, 4 years. And what's so sad is for 4 years, the Republicans, they laughed at him. Oh my God, do you believe these poor dupes? Oh, the Democrats believe in that crap about China, about Trump and Russia. That's so stupid. And I said, yeah, it is. But you wait, fools. Because sooner or later, your party's going to have a boogeyman for you, and you idiots will bite the hook just like a catfish. And what happened? 4 years later, There's the Republicans. Well, you know, the Chinese Communist Party is evil and they're out to get you and they must be stopped. And there's the Republicans. I should have known. You see what I'm saying? So it doesn't mean that the Republicans are duped. It doesn't mean that the Democrats are duped. It means that our government, our intelligence agencies knows that people are suckers. They learned that from weapons of mass destruction. See, what I learned from the weapons of mass destruction is these people will lie to us. I'll never trust them again. So what I learned from that, when they, remember Saddam Hussein was an evil dictator? You remember that? And if you said, well, I don't, oh, so you're loving Saddam, you must be a Saddam lover. What I learned that's their pattern. Okay. So when they want to attack and overthrow a country on a lie, when they want to dupe us into hating a country, they start by saying Saddam is evil. Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. Saddam is threatening us. Saddam. And then people are like, oh, Saddam. And before you know it, the dupes bite the hook. I never bit the hook. I'm one. Ask anybody that knows me, never ever bought into that Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. But a few years later, they come out with it's Putin. And you know what they learned? That all they got to do is say it over and over again, and the suckers will bite. But I learned the first time, so I'm like, not this time, pal. When you tell me that this leader is evil and that I should hate him and fear him, then I know that ain't true. So then the China Communist Party, so the Republicans, they're just as big as suckers. They learn nothing. So they're like, yeah, that's right, the Chinese Communist Party. How do you know? Let me give you a hint. Let me give you a hint. Look at your belief system. Look at your list of enemies. If your list of enemies aligns with the CIA's list of enemies, you've been had. Okay? Just keep that in mind. If you're like, hey, I hate Putin, Maduro, and G. And you're like, oh, really? Well, who's the CIA hate? Well, clearly Putin, Maduro, and G. You need to ask yourself questions. You need to look in the mirror and say, perhaps, maybe I'm being had. There ain't no maybes about it. I've been to South America. I've traveled out into the mountains and talked to little old country folks out in South America, living out in the villages. I had an interpreter. My interpreter was from here. I talked to the people. I asked them questions. And you know what I found out? This is a sad state of affairs. The poor villagers out in the mountains, mountainous villages in South America, small towns, you can call it a village. We just call it a small town, and they call it a village. Go to a small town out in South America. Those people are more knowledgeable about politics than most any American you'll ever find. But first of all, their government's been overthrown by America over and over. They've faced the pain of neoliberalism. They've faced the pain of globalism. I mean, faced it over and over. They've had the U.S. and the CIA overthrow their government, slaughter people by the thousands, murder their leaders. They understand what's going on here. Americans live in this dream world where we're like the shining city on the hill that stands up for democracy. We go around the world murdering people and overthrowing their countries and stealing their resources. And then Joe Biden says, we don't do that. And Americans believe it. And then American gives us, then after all the times that, here's what kills me. People who will say, I don't trust the government. The government's lying to me. And I'm like, man, you're on the right road there. And then they will look at their list of enemies, this so-called person who doesn't trust the government, and their list of enemies is exactly the same list of enemies as the CIA. They've been watching Fox, MSNBC, CNN, and they've been telling them it's Putin, it's Xi, it's Maduro, it's the leader of Cuba, it's the leader of Bolivia, it's the leader of Nicaragua, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, yeah, I'm down with it. Now, I had a guy, I do my radio show on WPFW. And I had a guy I'll never forget during the whole Russiagate crap. And, I was like, they're like, oh, Trump's going down because Mueller's got him. And I'm like, you really got to be, please, don't believe that. Yes. Oh, it's true. And I'm like, okay, sure. So this guy calls in one time. I'll never forget this. And he's like, yeah, I think Trump's works directly for Putin. And I'm like, dude, I said, that's a CIA talking point. He says, yeah, but I think this. I said, do you think the CIA is telling you the truth? And he says, I think they got it right this time. And I'm like, let's start here. There's so many levels that I need to address that. But here's what I said. The fact that you said you think they got it right this time implies that sometimes they get it wrong. They don't get it wrong. They intentionally lie to you. This is called psyops, psychological operation. The fact that you said you think they got it wrong this time means that you think sometimes they get it wrong and sometimes they get it right. It implies that when they did that weapons of mass destruction thing, that they were genuinely trying to get it right, but they just screwed up. And now they got it wrong. Right? So the bottom line is Americans are such dupes that they believe what they want to believe because it feels good, because it aligns with their little group, because it aligns with their ideology. Well, my ideology says I have to hate socialists and communists, so that's what I'm going to do. My ideology says I have to hate conservatives or right wingers, so that's what I'm going to do. They get stuck in this ideology, and then they're lost. They're of no value to anybody because they're just dupes and suckers, and that's what they end up. And the CIA's like, yeah, man, you're a smart guy, and we told you that China and Russia and Iran and Venezuela were bad, and you're smart enough to understand that the CIA got it right this time. You're like, yeah, Garland, you don't know what you're talking about. The CIA got it right this time about China and Russia and whatever countries. It's sad. So what happens is, look at our foreign policy in complete crisis, because it's a bunch of absurdities. And I'm not going to blame the American people completely. Here's why. I don't want to blame the victim to some extent, because we get so much propaganda. If you hear propaganda every day, it's going to start to sink in. If you hear the same, unless you're a person that has given up from the very beginning, like me, no. I mean, I start, like George Carlin said, I start with the idea that if the government says it, I don't believe it. And I don't, and even if it aligns with my ideology, see, that's where the government gets people. That's where the CIA, that's where propaganda gets you. There's a great book called The Confidence Game, Why We Fall for It Every Time, right? The confidence being the con game, the con artist, and they talk about it. And one of the things they say is this: look. If I want to make a sucker out of you, I need to know what you like, what you don't like, what you're scared of, what your ideology is, right? So all I got to do is know a little about you, and I'll know how to feed you propaganda. So in 2016, when Trump won, the intelligence agencies knew we got all of these people that hate Trump. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to get real rich off of this Cold War. We're going to direct the country to hate Russia and Putin. So here's what we're going to do. We'll connect Trump to him. We know we got a lot of people that hate Trump. We'll do it easy. That's the way the con game works. Hey, Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin, every day. Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin. You turn on the TV, Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin. And after a while, when your brain hears Trump, it actually physically, your brain, if you hear cup saucer, cup saucer, cup saucer, cup saucer every day, when your brain will physically create like a little, it starts to build neurons and all that kind of stuff. But what happens is it literally physically connects the area where the word cup is to the word saucer. You now have a physical metaphor in your brain, so that when somebody says cup, your brain goes saucer. Cup saucer, your brain, you don't have to think about it. Your brain does it, right? So they spent 4 years of saying Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin. And so what happens? When somebody says Trump, your brain says Putin. You don't have to do it. So when somebody like Garland says, look, you're being had, you say, no, but Trump, Putin, before you even get the word Trump out of your mouth. And you've been had. That's the way con games work. I was a salesman. Sales the same way. You can play games with people's minds in sales, right? So the bottom line is this. So for 4 years, they suckered the blue suckers in by just saying Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin. And they all thought, sadly, they believed that they came up with it. That's when you know propaganda is working, when you come up with an idea and you think it's yours. When I'm like, so what do you think about China? Well, the Chinese Communist Party is evil. And you think, well, how do you know that? I came up with that idea. Let me ask you this. If I ask you about China 10 years, what would you have said? Nothing, I didn't know. But the last couple of years, this CIA propaganda falls in your lap every day and says, China evil, China evil, China evil. And you're like, I don't know why, but I've been thinking a lot about China being evil. That's the way the confidence game goes. And you know what? It's funny because over the first 4 years, over the Trump administration, I feel good because here's one of the things that I said. I said, look, they always got a boogeyman. It was the Soviet Union. Soviet Union's gone. Oh, crap. Oh, terrorism. Iraq. They're going to have one for you, right? Oh, Al Qaeda. Remember this? Bin Laden. Bin Laden's waiting for you. I remember turning on the TV and watching I remember turning on the TV and watching some people, an interview in this small town, little country town in Virginia, and they were asking them about how do you what do you think about Bin Laden? And they're like, well, I think if he was to attack this little town, our town, I think he'd go for the Walmart because that's where everybody is. And I'm thinking to myself, they have suckered you to the point where you think that that Osama bin Laden is going to attack a Walmart in Raccoon Rape, Virginia. Really? That's a sad state of affairs, but that's the way it works. But at the time, think about it. The CIA didn't have a lot to work with. They had Osama bin Laden, so that's what they went with. It was Al Qaeda, right? Now, after a while, Al Qaeda kind of wore out, right? They kind of wore out, and now it's ISIS. They're coming to get you. ISIS is coming to get you. They're going to attack the stadiums. They're going to blow up. They're going to this. And people are like, oh my God, Garland, what do you think about ISIS? So they're going to get us. They're going to eat us alive, right? And I'm like, yeah, boy. So that's the boogeyman of today, right? Al Qaeda for a while, and then it's Russia. Hey, Putin's an evil guy. He's coming to get you. He's going to eat your family. And people are like, yeah, Russia. That's it. Well, it's not Saddam anymore. It's not Osama bin Laden. It's not ISIS. Who is it now again? Russia. Yeah, that's it. It's Russia now. And I'm like, you poor bastards. You don't see what's going on? So during that time on my radio show, I was like, guys and girls, do you know at some point there's going to be a new one? They're going to have another one. And the poor suckers are going to bite the hook on that one because that's what they do. That's what suckers do. If you're a sucker, you bite. As P.T. Barnum said, it's a crime against God and nature to allow a sucker to keep his money. And the same goes for his mind. So I was like, it's coming. And I just kept saying, there's another one. There's another one coming. I didn't know what it was. So then what happens? Hey, we just noticed that China's economy is just as big as ours and it's growing faster. Holy crap, they're gonna be more powerful than us. Hey, everybody, we got a new boogeyman announcement on Monday morning. Okay, who is it? It's China. And then all the dupes are like, yeah, boy, that China's evil. Now they're just going around and they think they came up with the idea. You didn't come up with the idea that it was Saddam Hussein. You didn't come up with the idea that it was Al Qaeda. You didn't come up with the idea that it was ISIS. You did not come up with the idea that it was Russia and Putin. And guess what? You didn't come up with the idea that it was China. It was handed to you. But if you're a dupe, what do you do to sheep? You share them. And that is what the CIA does. And so now we got all of the dupes that we don't, they're running around. Oh, China's doing everything evil. They must be stopped. Let me say this. Let me give you this. But before we go to any of the Assads, the Maduros, the Noriegas, let me tell you where I am. What about the U.S.? We got people that can't eat here. Have you been in the grocery store lately? The prices are going through the roof. People can't afford to feed their families. They locked people down for like all of these months and they didn't give them any money. They didn't do anything to help them out. They wiped out people's businesses, people that worked their whole life to build. I know people who worked their whole life to build a business and lost it in 6 months because of the lockdown. The government did nothing to help them. They did this PPP program and they gave all that money to their rich buddies and friends. But you're worried about China. You're not like, hey, I've been had. No. Hey, guys, you wiped out my family business and we're struggling. What are you going to do? Look over there. It's China. Oh, my God. It's the Chinese Communist Party. You're right. That's a psyop. My issue is this. I don't give a crap what China's doing. It's not my job. It's not our job. Are we the world police? Are we supposed to go around, here we come to save the day, and there's like a cape flying off the back? Hi, Captain America here. Why, your country is involved in shenanigans, and Captain America is here to clean things up. No, ain't none of my damn business. They are cutting people's heads off in South America. I mean, excuse me, in Saudi Arabia, one of our closest allies. They're bombing the crap out of, they're doing all kinds of terrible things. The way they treat people, they have no rights in Saudi Arabia, one of the most repressive regimes on earth. You know what I got to say about that? Man, I don't like it. It ain't good, but I ain't Saudis. Let the Saudis deal with that. Let the countries in that region deal with that. I'm not like, we got to go fix the human rights in Saudi America. No, in Saudi Arabia. No, I ain't Saudis. We got to eat right here. Let's deal with Americans. So when people start telling me what China's doing, what's Saudi Arabia doing, what Russia's doing, what's Saudi Arabia doing, what are we doing? You see my point? What are we doing? You're being duped. I look on the chat and there are people talking about every country in the world except America. How come you're not mad? You're angry at China. You're angry at Russia. You're angry. How come you ain't angry at the people here that cost people their entire living, lives, their businesses, everything, did nothing to help them out, gave trillions of dollars to their to the richest people on earth, and they got the suckers here worrying about what's going on in Xinjiang? What about what's going on in Toledo? What about what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi? What about what's going on in New York and what's going on in Bangor, Maine? That's what I'm worried about. It's not my job. It's not our job. We are not the world police. If you are worried about what's going on in China or Russia or wherever you've been had, you have been duped. Look over your shoulder. Go to the grocery store. I was at the grocery store and this potato salad with egg at the local that's something minor, and I love that. I love it, right? Love that potato salad with egg at this one. I used to get it was $3.59 a pound. I went there the other day, it's $5 a pound, $1.50 a pound more. I'm like, holy crap, I mean, I have a daughter and my daughter's grown. But if I was a person with a bunch of kids, a young man, and I had to feed my kids, and there are people that don't make a lot of money, and they're working hard and they're trying to feed their children, and they go to the grocery store, that's killing them. It ain't killing me. I can afford to eat right. I don't know, things could go bad on me, I guess. I don't know, but I'm okay. I can survive. But I understand that there's people with a house full of kids that they have to feed and they have to survive. And the prices are going up all around them. And people are telling me, they're like, hey, man, we got to eat. I can't afford to feed my kids. And people are like, well, the Chinese Communist Party's over there in Xinjiang doing something. Oh, really? Well, kids, sit over there. You don't need any food. I got to let Xinjiang. We got to. No, absolutely not. And human rights? How about some human rights in Israel? Israel's just vicious, fascist country slaughtering innocent people. Nothing. We got no. Yeah, great. Way to go, Israel. It's absurd where America has been dragged, and I don't blame Americans. You know who I really blame? Yeah, but one of the people I really blame, to be honest, and the right or conservatives are going to love this, because let's face it, if you're conservative, you have to hate Obama. Now, if I had the blue no matter who morons on here, they'd have to say, hey, Garland, I know who's to blame. Trump. Yay! Garland said Trump's to blame. And so now the other red brainwashed cult, when I say I got issues with Obama, oh, now you're talking, dude. One of our boogeymen is Obama. You hate him. And my point is, this is not about any individual politician or individual person or individual leader. This is about a system. So if you're caught up in individual politicians or persons or leaders, you've already been had. So one of the things Obama did, I think it was 2012 or 13, you could look it up. It was the NDEAA. It was the bill that has to do with the authorization for the defense. I think it's the National Defense Authorization Act. But one of the things that he did, somebody said it's $4 trillion handout to the stock market. Exactly, because that's what they do. Oh, no, you don't want to talk about that. Look over there, China. Look over there, Putin. Oh, look over there, Iran. You don't want to worry about the $4 trillion they gave away to the people in the stock market. But at any rate, one of the things Obama did is he changed the law. The law basically before was that the intelligence agencies couldn't use propaganda at home. Obama signed a law to change it. Now, don't get me wrong. There was Republicans on board. There was Democrats on board. They were all on board with it, but they changed the law. 2012, 13, I think it was. And I believe that as a result of that, for instance, you go on CNN, MSNBC, and all you see, hey, former CIA agent so-and-so, former NSA, former FBI. Go to Fox, you get the same crap. You go to the mainstream, go to New York Times and Washington Post and all of them. What do you see? Unnamed sources from the intelligence community have leaked saying this or that, or that is a bunch of lies. But because of Obama's NDAA, they can get away with it now. They can do it now. And so now what do we have? Now, not only do we have a government that's a pack of lies, but we have an entire brainwashed cult country of people following behind those lies, believing them. Believing a bunch of boogeymen, a bunch of people in America that don't have sense enough to look out for their own needs. When I say, dude, the price of potato salad's gone up and everything else in the store. And they're like, yeah, Garland, but really, I understand that, but we got to focus on what they're doing in Xinjiang or that's Shanghai or whatever the hell. Oh, well, those people in Maduro, in Venezuela, he's doing something and God knows Assad. No! You need to buy a dozen eggs. Your wife just sent you to the store to get some eggs because tomorrow morning the kids want eggs for breakfast. And you get there and you're like, holy crap, they cost 3 times what I want. But if only the Chinese would stop doing something, these price of eggs would go right down. I don't care about China. Don't care about Russia. Not interested in Iran. I have not bitten the sucker's hook. I tell people all the time, my enemies ain't in Moscow, they ain't in Beijing, and they ain't in Tehran. My enemies are on Wall Street. My enemies are in Silicon Valley. My enemies are in Seattle with big tech. My enemies, the military-industrial complex. My enemies are in on Capitol Hill. Those are the people that are taking us to the cleaners, and they won't do anything unless we make them, and we won't make them if we're brainwashed goons. So, to wrap this thing up, the U.S. leader met with the Russian leader, and all we got was a bunch of crappy rhetoric about, yes, Trump said, Biden said that Putin listened to him, or he confronted Putin. Oh, Putin said Biden was nice. Nothing of any substance. So when the nukes get to flying and we're all dead, we'll be like, yeah, well, I'm not saying anything because I'm dead. I guess that's what we'll be doing. And it's because we don't have a sense enough to push our government in the direction that we want to push it. They don't work for us. They work for the oligarchs. They work for the military industrial complex. They don't work for us. And they won't work for us if we follow behind them into some absurd foreign policy. Ultimately, when Putin and Biden got together, I didn't want Biden to confront Putin. I didn't want him to go after him with all kinds of claims. What are you doing about Navalny? We could talk about Navalny. First of all, here's what the first thing I tell you about Navalny. He's a Russian citizen and he ain't here. I didn't hear Putin or Xi or any of those people or the leaders of Iran saying, there was a guy arrested in New Jersey, Sheboygan, I believe it was. I think he was arrested unjustly. What do you think the U.S. would say? Mind your business. We have our own criminal justice system. I got problems with it, but it's ours. In Canada, Mexico has no business calling us, telling us who the hell to arrest and not. Go to hell. We're the United States. We'll do what we want with whom we choose in the borders of our country. Navalny was convicted of what? Him and his brother was convicted of embezzling $500,000 from a French cosmetics company. That ain't our business. They want to arrest him. He's a Russian citizen. What the hell are we doing telling Russia who they not? Well, you shouldn't arrest Navalny. They should just say, mind your business. He's a Russian citizen. We'll do what we choose with who we choose within the confines of our borders. That's what they should say, because that's what we should tell them. So Joe Biden's there. Yeah, you got to do this. And the Russians' position is clear. We don't interfere in the personal affairs of other countries, and we don't allow other countries to interfere with the personal affairs of us. And I agree with them. I don't believe we are the world's police. We do not have the authority. If we go to another country and say, you should do this, they should say, go to hell. We'll do what we want. until we have, there's plenty of injustice here. Why don't we deal with our own injustice? We ain't dealing with that. So I don't want to deal with somebody else's injustices until ours are cleaned up. And I still don't want to deal with somebody else's injustices. And think about this. Is it a coincidence that we will happen to pick the country now that is the evil country that we want to overthrow? And it's like everything they do is bad. What about China? Everything they do is bad. What about Iran? Oh, they're treating their people wrong. So what? It ain't none of my business if they're treating their people wrong. Don't want to know about it. Don't want to hear about it. You know what I want to know? Why is the price of eggs so high? Why is it that people trying to feed their family right here in America? Why is the price of gas going up? Why is it you can't buy a used car? The price of used cars is unbelievable. Inflation is rising. Our economic policies are a disaster. And part of the reasons that our economic policy is a disaster is because of our foreign policy, because so much money goes into the war machine that there ain't enough for us to eat. There ain't enough for our roads to be passable. There ain't enough for our bridges to be taken care of, for our airports to be renewed. There's not enough for our infrastructure to be dealt with. And even what little infrastructure they started to put in, they're like, yeah, we got to do infrastructure. Why? Because of China. Well, really? How about we need to do infrastructure because our infrastructure is falling apart, but we won't. And see, people won't get mad. You know why they won't get mad? Because they've already been duped. How are you going to get mad about infrastructure when somebody's already convinced you that we've got to buy more aircraft carriers to confront fill in the blank, China, Russia, blah, 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 blah. We got to go halfway across the world. The military industrial complex is getting rich off of building those aircraft carriers. Corporation after corporation is getting rich off of that. You ain't getting nothing. You're getting poorer. You're going to get nothing out of it. So ultimately, what should have happened yesterday when I look at we've got to confront Putin. That's not diplomacy. I wanted to hear we made a deal to work on a treaty on cyberspace. We made a deal to work on a treaty on nuclear weapons. We made a deal to work on a treaty to slow up the arms race. We made a deal to work on. That's what I want to hear. That's the job of the president of the United States, not to come back with, yeah, I shook my fist at him. I looked into his soul. That is abstract garbage rhetoric for suckers. I ain't a sucker. I want to hear something concrete, but I can't get it because our country, anytime Joe Biden will say these words, will come out to a press conference and say, let's get this straight. How would it be if the United States were viewed by the rest of the world as interfering with the elections directly of another country and everybody knew it, which is exactly what we do in country after country after country after country. Anytime our president can go into a meeting with the president of another country and come out in a press country and tell a bald-faced lie like that, how are we going to get anywhere? Trust me, they ain't worried about you. You got to start thinking about yourself. You got to wake up and say, I'm not going to be involved in this crappy rhetoric where they give me the CIA gives me a list of countries and I hate all of them. Whichever one I already dislike, I'm going to add that to my list and pretend like I figured it out. No, thank you. No, thank you. At any rate, this is a lot of fun. I enjoy coming on here and talking with everybody. I'm just about out of here. Oh my gosh, 48 minutes. That's much longer than I really want to be. But, you know, I got to run my mouth and have some fun. I want to thank everybody. If you want to, well, let me tell you this. Follow me on Twitter at Garland Nixon. Like, share, subscribe to my YouTube page. Go to my YouTube page if you're watching it somewhere else. Like, share, subscribe. Right. Share this on all of your social media platforms and let people know. I'll be on here regularly tomorrow. I may not be on tomorrow. I'm not sure. Well, tomorrow, of course, you know, I do my show from 6 to 8. Excuse me. I do 6 to 8 it's on, but I actually record it in the afternoon. So also from 6 to 7. So I'm on Radio Sputnik from 6 to 8. I'm on Pacifica from Pacifica WPFW 89.3 in Washington, D.C. I'm there from 6 to 7 p.m. And believe it or not, I'm working. Hopefully I'll be in Los Angeles soon. I'm working on that. Don't know if it's going to come through, but I hope it does. And if that, geez, I wonder how I'm going to go in LA. I've been out to LA and there's a lot of blue no matter who people out there who are totally duped by the Democratic Party. Of course, then you go to another part of the world, another part of the country, and they're duped by the Republican Party. So a dupe is a dupe. At Garland Nixon on Twitter, Garland.Nixon on Instagram, just plain old Garland Nixon on Facebook. And I give you my email. And this is what I say, because if you disagree with me, there are people out there that disagree with me. Here's what I say to those who disagree with me. I'm not trying to be right. I'm trying to be correct. If I say something here that you disagree with, and you have some substantive rebuttal, not, well, I disagree because, hey, communism really is, I ain't trying to hear that. Oh, no, the Democratic Party really is the good guys. I ain't trying to hear that. No, you don't understand the conservatives. Why I ain't trying to hear that. If you got a link, if you got something substantive, share it with me. I like to learn. I don't want to be right. I want to be correct. And so garlandin@gmail.com. Feel free to share information with me. If you got a topic that you want me to talk about, feel free to share that with me. garlandin@gmail.com. Thanks a lot, everybody. Wow, 47 viewers tonight. I really appreciate that. Share it. Hopefully more people will be up and at 'em here soon. I'm going to be on regularly. Maybe on tomorrow at 7. I don't know. Maybe I should just go ahead after do my Pacifica show and do a half hour if I got it in me. But I'll definitely be on the weekend. You can see I'm on here all the time now. I'm really enjoying it. I got a lot to say. Peace. I'm out.